Welcome to Breaking the Silence, the podcast where we open up the conversations that matter the most but are often left unspoken. This is a safe space for real talk, honest stories, and deep exploration around sexuality, mental health, relationships, and the social issues that shape our lives. Welcome to Breaking the Silence. It's also Mutona with you, Dineo Ranaga, the older sister of the nation, on another episode of Breaking the Silence, and I hope you're going to have a good one this time. I know you will, actually. You're really going to enjoy this one because it's a hot topic. It's the topic of substance abuse. I'm not addressing this matter on my own today. I'm joined by the Deputy Chairperson of Central Drive Authority, Ms. Nomcebo Dlamini. Welcome.
Thank you very much. I feel so welcome already.
I'm glad. I'm glad.
And I'm glad that we're going to get to speak about the subject with somebody who is passionate and who can possibly just drive the message home, especially to our young people.
I can only but do my best to be used as a vessel for this one. Thank you so much. Your insights. I want to dig deep into your brain and find those insights on the early onset of substance abuse amongst our children, learners, particularly the startling statistic that, substance dependence starts at a very fragile age, the age of 12 in this country. Man, what are we exposing our children to? Because children emulate.
Of course, yeah.
So for me, when I see this sort of statistic, that the average age of drug dependency in South Africa is the age of 12. And if I'm going to ask what factors contribute to such early exposure, I can only blame myself as an adult.
It is shocking. And when you go to the treatment centers, because as the Central Drug Authority, maybe just to explain what we do and what we are responsible for. So we are responsible for the National Drug Master Plan, which is the country's overall strategy in terms of substance abuse and how we deal with it as a country. And the National Drug Master Plan is developed by the Central Drug Authority together with other stakeholders, the Department of Government and faith-based organizations, NGOs, as well as parents and schools and everybody else who could in any way be involved with dealing with young people. And as the authority, then what we do is we support all these institutions and everybody else, all the stakeholders, to implement the National Drug Master Plan. And that plan is based on the 5 principles, which are rights-based, evidence-based, making sure that we do not then, as we're dealing with young people, even with other people that are dealing with issues of substance use, we are not dealing with them in a way that is against human rights, because the country is governed by a constitution. So we have to make sure that it's according to that constitution, that even the programs and the interventions that we have and are implementing in the country are guided by. And when it comes to young people, like the 12-year-old stats or the average that you're talking about, it is quite shocking.
It's shocking because they don't teach themselves.
No, they don't.
See it from somewhere.
Exactly.
They learn it from somewhere.
They learn it at home, unfortunately. Imigidi yetu. We have those. They learn it at home when we then decide that we are sending the child to the bottle store to buy you ipianyan.
Or even just send them to the fridge.
To bring you. And then you're like, no. And what they do most of the time, they take a tiny little sip. You know how when you were young, you want to just check, umama, what is she drinking? And I'd like to just get a tiny little taste of this. And that's how they get introduced. And the introduction, because we are talking about 12-year-olds that are now dealing with addiction. That means this child started experimenting or ingesting substances at an early age. And it is shocking, Dineo, that I'm going to tell you that now we're talking about 6-year-olds that start using substances. And our treatment centers, because then the parents, once they get to that stage where they then are dealing with the addiction, then they are quick to then think, let's take them to a treatment center. But then we do not even have the capacity or the facility to take in such young kids. So it is the depression that children deal with in our homes because of the stress of life in our homes and our families being so fragmented. You know, Maskula, when we were growing up, we had grandparents around us. We had cousins all the time. It was just it's such a different environment that we grew up in. And I always also say, you know, there's one thing that we never ever think about. Remember, we had a pandemic when it started of HIV in this country.
Yes.
When that pandemic happened, a lot of children found themselves in child-headed homes. These kids are raising themselves and they are raising their siblings. So you can imagine a 12-year-old is now, perhaps when they were younger, they don't have anybody, any family structure that will protect them because children need to be protected.
100%. 100%.
And then they grow up and at 12, they find themselves addicted.
6.
Yeah, 6.
How do they get access?
It's like you said, at home. We're in the fridge. We have alcohol in the fridge. And the other challenge that we have as a country is we've normalized the use of alcohol. Because it's one thing to talk drug. Yes. We have. We've normalized it. We don't even, and the worst is, in normalizing it, we normalize the excessive drinking. We don't even, unlike other nations and other cultures, they perhaps they are kids. They know that you take a glass of wine, over a meal, exactly. But what we do,
wind down.
On the Friday, Saturday, Sunday in our country are the worst days.
Listen, we are binge drinkers this side.
Exactly, that's what we do. Yeah. And then our kids see that. And they think, oh, so to have fun, you need to be like a bit tipsy. And to have fun, there has to be lots of these bottles in front of you. You know, like if it's just one, no, it has to be 10. And then we have to drink them all at once and finish them all, you know. And they see that.
What does peer pressure look like in a subject like this? Because I think it might, well, not it might, most probably plays one of the biggest roles,
of course,
right, in both substance use as well as risky sexual behavior among teenagers. And in your experience, I'm interested to know, how does the desire for belonging and acceptance influence poor decision-making possibly, you know, or not even poor, but just general decision-making, especially when it comes to substance use as well as sexual encounters?
You know, what we did in 2023, we went around the country and we had one engagement with just young people in the Eastern Cape. And when we were discussing this matter of substance use and why they then get into even the risky sexual behavior, they were like, unfortunately, it's the friends. You know, I go out with my friends and I don't necessarily want to be different. So if my friends are drinking, I will drink, not necessarily because I thought I wanted to drink, but I will find myself drinking because I want to fit in. My friends are drinking. And then the next is, then they start goading each other to say, that this man is looking at you. What are you doing about it? You know, and when you are in that state where you are inebriated, you are now not thinking so well. You know, and even the decisions that you're making are not so great. So even the pressure, the push, it then gets to you. And then suddenly you feel like, and also, you know, there's this thing that alcohol sometimes does, makes you feel brave.
Very.
And you're brave in the wrong way. And now you're like, yes, I can do this, you know. And now you're also trying to prove, you know, as a young person, you also want to prove them, you know, as they're goading you, you can't do this. You're like, I will.
And they challenge each other with binge drinking as well.
Exactly, they do, you know. And even the okay, so what are you going to get out of this man? It gets that far. So I will drink, and I'll be just slightly inebriated, and I will then be able to, and I now have to come back and prove that I actually got something. And unfortunately, when it comes to some of our gentlemen, they are not responsible enough to actually see that this is a young person, this is a young woman that I should not be taking advantage of.
A lack of self-regulation, really, from adults in this country.
Yeah, of course.
There's a lot of lack of self-regulation from adults. And I mean, I'm not just talking about the male gender and the old men who are predators and prey on young people in social spaces, even on social media. Because our kids are not safe, generally. But I'm also talking about, you know, even us females. There's lack of self-regulation from all of us. From all of us. I mean, when we talk about the subject of alcohol, I used to be a drinker. And it dawned on me. There was a sober penny that dropped. To say, Dineo, as a drinker, if your son or your daughter comes home, and I love the word inebriated, because I always say clinically inebriated. That's how we used to always describe ukudakwa komuntu.
Yep.
To say, the way you are now, it's clinical. For me, it almost seems like you need to be taken to hospital to have all of that alcohol drained
out of you,
out of your system.
Drained out of
and I said to myself, if your son starts drinking, your daughter starts drinking, are you going to be comfortable with that?
Yeah.
And how would you then best position yourself to guide them or reprimand them if need be when you yourself have failed at regulating yourself and placing yourself in a space where you are not seen in that light?
Yeah.
You know, so already your behavior is disempowering you where your children are concerned and keeping them safe. So you're going to have to choose, Dinewa, between who do you love?
Yeah. Use the alcohol more than your kids.
Do you love your children or do you love the alcohol?
Yeah.
Because it's social drinking. It seems like it's not a problem.
It's what we're saying.
It seems like it's not a problem. We've normalized it.
Normalized.
But when you are now hosting your friends in the house,
Yeah.
right? And you guys are now, the wine is settling, the gins and the tonics are settling,
Gosh.
the ciders are settling. Even Nani, as parents in the household, your
then
behavior
yes,
changes.
Exactly.
The loudness, the looseness, the looseness
And
of
the kids
tongue.
are watching that
The
the
kids
whole
are watching. They see
They
the
see
change.
this. Yes.
They see the difference. That's the thing. We think that the children are not seeing the difference. They see you go from sober mom, right? Who's
Yeah.
not strict. I'm not a strict mom. I really, fairly am very genuinely open with my children, but they know I'm not their friend.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm their parent, and I always say I'm your mentor, your guardian before I'm your mother.
Yeah.
So I've been, God borrowed me you. He chose me to teach you a few things, and I can only teach you so much. The rest you will learn on your own,
Yep.
right? So I say to myself, if these children are seeing this deteriorating behavior all the time, would I be proud of myself if I have ushered my
Nell.
children, if I have enabled my own children's addiction? Pardon me for that. I mean, if I touch the mic, technically there'll be a bit of an audio glitch there, but do I want to be an enabling parent? And I said no. And I immediately called Turkey, stopped. The bottle stores in this country do not know my money anymore.
Of course.
And I'm super proud.
And thank you very
for
much
a
for
while, I've not contributed to the
that.
billions.
That they're making.
And I'm not saying this as a token and a badge of honor to say I'm on a high moral ground, but I'm just sharing my personal experience so that we can hold ourselves accountable for what we are doing to our children and our society, because by funda kuti.
And I am so grateful that you are saying this as you are saying it, because we truly wish, as the CDA, that a lot of South African parents would start thinking like this.
We have to, because ukunxila ababudopi estratweni,
No, they
babudopa
don't.
ejaritini.
And then we are so quick to blame everything else. We blame government, we blame celebrities,
Injalo.
we literally blame everyone, but we fail to look at ourselves. And even as we're blaming them, do you know that right at that moment, we are possibly sitting around a whole bottle, drinking
while
as-
blaming them. Hi guys, we are not right.
We're drinking while blaming them, you know.
my
But we
goodness.
all need to come to a point where we're looking at ourselves as a society and starting to think, you know, our president lately is saying, what kind of South Africa do you want? We should truly be asking ourselves that question. What kind of home do I want? What kind of child do I want? What kind of family am I looking at? And is this it? Is this it where we are drinking, where we are doing all these things? And instead of saying, they're going to sort them out, they're not going to sort them out.
No, they're
in
not
school.
going to sort them out. Actually,
They're
they
not.
might get worse.
They might get worse there.
Yeah.
We need to be looking at our homes. What's happening in our homes? What's happening in our communities? Because, you know, everybody has a community of their own. What are we
100%.
what are we doing there? You know, what have we normalized there?
There, it starts
You know,
there.
because that's where it starts. Yeah. And then we are able, and also what you're saying, that we need to be standing in a, if I may call it, a place of moral standing.
A place of moral standing, 100%.
You know, where
I
you are
agree with
going to be able to say to your child, "Uyifunde phi lena?" You know,
Because
because
like
like ayenziwa. Uyifunde, but
100%.
we don't even have that. we're not even able to do that, because we then say to them, you're not supposed to be, because kids of today, they will answer back. Unlike
they
us,
do.
They will answer you back to say, but why? Because you are the one that does this and this and this. And then you're saying, I shouldn't do it. Why not?
I was watching a film, I can't remember what streaming platform it was, and a dynamic between a mother and a daughter.
Mm-hmm.
So the daughter has been staying out late, and she's in her mid to late teens now.
Yeah.
Giving the mother a headache. And the mother is obviously a struggling single mother, tough life, and and the mother is sitting on the couch waiting for her daughter to come home.
Oh my goodness.
The daughter has been out drinking with the friends, smoking with the friends, doing drugs and dodgy things with the friends. So she's been smoking marijuana, so she comes back home, and the mother says, I expect better from you. I just expect you to make better decisions.
Yeah.
And you know what the daughter says? Oh, like all the amazing decisions
that
you've made for your life that have landed us here.
Wow.
My heart stopped, because immediately I asked myself, but is she wrong?
Yeah.
But is she wrong that she has observed her mother
yeah.
make poor decisions, and now her mother judges her? So truly we must reflect.
We need to.
I-self-reflection ayikho pha eMzansi. Low i-self-reflection.
See, blame our won't, like literally, we will look at everybody else and their grandmother, and then fail to look at me.
And the late people.
And the late people. Oh, yes, of course. Oh,
we don't forget the ancestors.
The ancestors.
We are blaming them. We are wanting to
That's the
slaughter
reason
goats
why
for them.
we are here.
That's why we are here.
And then you're looking at yourself that, okay, even as a slaughtered, just to say about this, we are here, we sacrifice. And as senza njalo siyakhala nokukhala sinjalo, we're blaming everyone for our problems. So yeah.
We've got many problems in this country, and one of them is drug abuse, and many learners have shared that drugs are easily accessible in schools. In schools, double underline, in schools.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on this? Already your expression is telling me a lot, because there's an impact here. What are your thoughts on the impact of this accessibility? We're talking here mental and physical impacts.
Yes.
Negative impacts.
And I'm sure you've read in the news where there's been substances that have been found just outside the school. Chips, yes, it's happening. It's real.
It's not a lie.
It's not a lie. And then there's also this with the cannabis. It's not. We didn't decriminalize cannabis, by the way, in this country.
It's not decriminalized?
It's not.
So where does that rumor stem from?
It's the fact that it's the medicinal use, of course, that's there. And also the fact that now you can use personally, but not for children.
Oh, now we're all going to have anxiety.
Now, so
and we're all
children,
need it.
Children then got that cannabis, it's okay. It's okay, you can smoke it. So there's a school in Gauteng, in Eguruleni, that where the kids were behind the classrooms, and they were smoking. And a whole mess. On that one, what we did together, supported by World Changers, actually World Changers International, which is the organization that assisted Ukabelo Mabalana.
Yes.
So they took that school, and then they assisted that school. That school is clean now. And it's now an ambassador for a clean school and how you can get it there.
So how did they do that? How did they manage to get into that space and create a safer environment for the learners by cleaning it up?
So what they did as an organization, because we also, remember I did say that we're working with all sorts of stakeholders.
Yeah.
So they went into the school and they started engaging these young people, because that's the thing. Young people need to be engaged. You don't come in where now holier than thou and telling them, don't do. But you sit down with them. You ask them, why is it that you guys are doing this? And then, so this organization, that's basically what they took the school, and then they went in, spoke with the kids, figure out the learners, what is it that is troubling them, and all that. And also they figured out, how are the drugs getting into your school? Found that, unfortunately, even the kids themselves are now dealers.
Oh, that breaks my heart.
It's shocking. But remember, there's also the issue of poverty in our country. So drug dealers, they target these young kids. And they know that what is happening, what happens is, they know that your child, if ekaya kungasi right, this thing of what that we just spoke of peer pressure. They want to look like other kids.
Yes,
they want to
true.
wear the same labels that the other kids are wearing. And then they are the ones that are bringing the drugs, because the dealers are then finding them at home, grooming them to be dealers, and then baba tholela lama drugs bangena nawo esikolweni, you know, and that has an effect, like you were saying, on mental health.
100%.
That is, and remember, the earlier you start to use substances, the more your brain gets affected.
And this is what, you know, where education around alcohol and substance abuse is concerned, we don't talk about what it does to your neurons. We don't talk about, and I mean, the information is there, but we really don't highlight the dangers. And also, it's difficult to highlight those dangers and for those dangers to be believed. I think, based on experience, because the effect of alcohol in your system doesn't feel as heavy an impact that is negative as maybe you would see a person who's addicted to crack or heroin.
Yes.
So we make these comparisons and we're saying, but I don't look like that. So I don't have an addiction problem, so I don't have a problem. But you don't have to look like that.
Yes.
Your brain
looks like that. Exactly. You're right.
Your brain looks like that. If we were to go scan your brain right now, most likely it's damaging. We can see the deterioration.
And when we talk about evidence-based interventions, one of the evidences that has come out, scientific evidence from the World Health Organization, is that anybody who starts to drink even a single, now it's shocking, even a single glass of alcohol before the age of 21, the brain is affected. And these are the things that we don't talk about. And you know, there's a doctor that said to us, came and we were just talking about these things, and she said the other thing that we never talk about is that the DNA, our DNA, is different. The way that you are affected by substances and the way that I am affected
will always be different.
And our children don't know that. So they think, as we're going as a group, we can drink the same, but the way that it's going to affect me and the way that it's affecting you is not going to be the same. And the way that I will react, because we find that even in using substances, some people have psychosis, some don't.
Yes.
But they've taken the same drug. But
some people vomit,
some don't.
Some people have hangovers.
Exactly, some don't.
And some people black out, some don't.
And then you question that. But of course we never do. But we should be questioning. We should be questioning that, because then that means even in terms of the brain function and the mental health, the effects are not the same. So we need to even teach and tell our children, sitting down, like we're sitting down now and talking, to say, you know, you can drink with your friend, because kids, young people will dodge you and they will go behind your back and you will not know all the time. But they need to get this information from their parents to say, when you do these things, Kyle, your friend, you might go there and take that meth. Kyle will be fine. You will be climbing on the wall. You know, because your DNA is different from his. But we don't talk about this. And of course, our children are very, very clever now. So when you talk DNA, they understand immediately what you're talking about.
100%. I mean, they've got ChatGPT,
Yeah.
so it's quick to know what these things are. I want to bring us back to educators, because they're often in the front lines when it comes to addressing substance abuse, and they face significant challenges in the front line. What support do they need in order to effectively handle substance abuse?
They need training. The world that we are living in now and the world that teachers who were teaching us lived in is very different. So what they need is just capacitation. There's lots of training that the Department of Social Development and the Department of Basic Education, but social development in the main, is providing, especially when it comes to the Gimoja program. I don't know if you're aware of it. There's a program that's called Gimoja. And it trains teachers, it trains parents, it trains even young people themselves in terms of how to deal with this. And the training also needs to extend to how then do you deal with a young person, for instance, that you see is perhaps getting into risky sexual behavior, or perhaps they're using substances, because you can pick these things up as a teacher in the classroom. You can. So they need to be trained to say, how do you approach And how do you get to have a conversation with this young person so that you can assist them? And the teachers that we have spoken to have indicated, even the Department of Basic Education, that, with the changes, even in the laws, it was easy before because you could just take out the cane on literally everything.
Yeah, on everything.
Yeah,
on everything.
like on everything.
You can instill fear
exactly, and
immediately.
it's good. You're good, But now it forces the teachers to perhaps engage more, even with the subjects that they did not necessarily want to engage with, like for instance, sexuality.
Yeah.
They will need now to be trained in terms of how do you engage with young people in that space. And also acknowledging that they have young people have access to so much. They know so much more than you. So one, they will not take lies.
This is true.
You can't lie.
This is true.
Two, they will not accept wishy-washy answers that just say, no, it's this when it's actually not. They will ask you very direct questions. You will need to be able to answer those questions. So I believe that it's training that they need, and that training is available. And we need, but the training also has to be by people that are willing to go deep and not just be like wishy-washy. And also, this issue of language, because I always think about that when it comes to sex in our culture as Black people especially, we don't talk about it. So that they also need to be taught. How do you actually talk about this and talk about it in such a way that this young person that you are trying to assist and help is able to be helped?
100%.
Yeah,
100%.
because you cannot approach it the way that you would probably normally approach these subjects, because we just don't talk,
We are scared, no?
We are scared.
We are scared. We are very, very scared. I know we touched on it briefly, but I want to unpack it thoroughly now, the long-term consequences of substance abuse for learners, both in terms of their personal health, their broader social impact, especially when it comes to risky sexual behavior. Because that's a big challenge.
Yeah, that's a big challenge. And young people make decisions when they are young that then they carry the whole of their lives.
Yes.
Like you find that they've started engaging in sex when they're not emotionally ready, and now they are carrying that emotional baggage.
Oh, it's so sad.
It's so sad. And then in some instances, they get infected with disease, HIV, STIs, they're out there. And remember, as a young person, making such decisions is perhaps not, and especially if they're not informed and you're not using protection. So now you've got HIV, you're carrying it the rest of your life. You've got a child, you got pregnant.
It's a lifelong.
And you got pregnant, you were 13. The rest of your life now, this child is not going to go away. And you can imagine there's so many things that come with having a child. And as adults, we've had children, and you know what it takes to have a child.
I say this all the time. Imagine
on a child. And then after that, you are carrying that. And more often than not, we find that it then extends to the next generation. Because now you've had a child when you were 13. Chances are very high that your daughter, if it was your daughter, will probably have a child when they're young. So now the whole family, we're just dealing with that kind of trauma of having children, and then the children not being able to take care of the children that they've had. And then it continues. And then what do we do? Because our country is so, like we've said, normalized using alcohol to self-comfort.
I'm surprised it's not listed as a drug.
It is a drug. Alcohol
we know
is a drug.
It's a drug, but it's not.
But it's not
I don't think it's listed.
No. It's listed
from a legal perspective to say, ooh, you know what they did to cigarettes? Like no advertising of it. It would be nice to see
perhaps
that with alcohol.
We should start that move to say.
Oh
no, there's the 2016 Liquor Amendment Bill. It's still frozen. Do you know, it's still frozen. It's still not tabled in cabinet or in parliament. And the reason is what we are hearing, we're not sure, is the industry is just not allowing it to move. And the Liquor Amendment Bill talks about advertising. You see what's happening on TV, like every soccer match or something like that, every ad, every break. Okay, soccer is even better because it's 45 minutes. So you only get to see the adverts after 45 minutes. every other sport. Actually, now they've started even advertising around what, 6ish?
Yeah, because I know that even with radio, there are times where alcohol should not be advertised, period. Yeah.
So that marketing and advertising is in that liquor amendment bill.
Yeah.
And it's just not moving. The issue of the legal age to drink is in that liquor amendment bill, which we have recently, it has been raised to 21.
Okay, that's good.
But it's not happening because it's frozen since 2016.
Since 2016.
It's 2016.
That's many years.
Exactly.
That's many
Actually,
years.
you know what's probably going to come? They'll probably say, no, it's now outdated. Let's start the process again. And then it will take another 10 years. But we cannot allow that to happen. And I always say, civil society, we have the power. We are the ones. We are South Africans. We have the power. If we would decide that there's something that we don't want, look at the tobacco issue. And now there's the sugar tax. It did, yes, it was really difficult to get it through, but it did go through.
It did go through.
So what do we want to do about this? Perhaps it's something that we should be asking ourselves.
Sure. Learners, it's about you, hey? It's about you. We're doing this for you, literally doing the Lord's work for you, honestly, because we want your well-being to be put as a priority. So some of these measures, legalities and so forth that we're talking about here, where alcohol and substance abuse is concerned. I know some of you most probably are watching and like, oh, why no? Now our generation, they drank then, now our generation must drink at 21. It truly is better for you. Just do some research on how it's so damaging on your brain function. You'll understand. Madlamini, the learners have expressed a desire for more comprehensive sexuality education, right? And this is particularly around the risks of substance abuse and its links to sexual behavior. It goes through the mouth, it goes into the bloodstream, and it makes the joints loose. And joints are everywhere.
Everywhere, of course.
They are everywhere in the body, right? So how can we structure sexuality education to be more effective and relevant for today's youth?
The structuring is exactly as you've just said. We need to be teaching them things as they are. Like, for instance, what you've just mentioned, that what happens to the body when you ingest alcohol? What then happens to the rest of you? Even perhaps the way that you get aroused, we need to talk about that.
We have to talk about that.
Yeah, we need to talk about that.
There's a difference between being aroused in sobriety
Of
and
course,
being aroused under the influence. And the better arousal is in sobriety.
In sobriety. So all those things are conversations that we need to have. So when they're saying they need the sexual education to be real, we need to meet them there and make it real. Because there's a lot of things that they see on TV. One of the things that we discovered going around was the availability of porn is shocking. And kids access it all the time. So those are the conversations that we also need to have. And I know that they are very uncomfortable conversations. But they are conversations that our teachers will need to have. And even anybody who deals with young people. I even extended to say, even in the churches.
Even in the churches, yes.
Even in the churches, in the wherever young people gather, we need to break this thing of saying we can't talk about this here, we can't talk. If a youth group in your church, you are dealing with them and you are able to talk to them about the things that are most important. Talk to them about issues of alcohol, and do not want to pretend that in the church they're not drinking, because it's crazy out there. People always say, no, but they cannot be drinking. No, they are.
They are. They cannot be sexing, but they are.
So if you have that group of young people and you are able to engage with them and you're able to talk to them like that. Teach them, because teaching does not only happen in a classroom. It needs to happen everywhere. And we need to all understand that we have a responsibility as the adults. We have a responsibility to raise all the young people that you come across, where you have influence.
I want to talk about some of the most effective strategies, and this is now for parents, educators, and the community at large, to engage in open conversations with learners about substance abuse as well as risky behavior.
The UNODC, which is the United Nations Office on Drugs and Crime, has developed so many. United Nations Office of Drugs and Crime.
On drugs and crime. Okay.
So they work on developing the science evidence-based programs. There's prevention. There's a CHAMPS prevention model, but we are not using it in South Africa. Though Kimoja has been is now a proven scientific method or program that can be used. It's got 4 modules. It's got a module for parents. It's got a module for teens, even for kids, actually. It's got a modules for kids that are in ECD centers to tell them about sexuality, about abuse, about how to avoid being abused sexually themselves, about how to say no, about how to identify when a person is dealing with them in a not appropriate manner. It's got a program for teens, and then it's got a program as well as for people that have now come out of the use of substances, because we also need to be able to assist them, and that's aftercare, to say how do they get assisted to not relapse.
And how do we break the silence and encourage these tough discussions? I mean, we, in certain ways, in some of these answers that we've given, we've addressed it, but sometimes we need to be very specific. And I'd like to hear from you what your thoughts are of the possible solutions to this little problem that we have, because we have to break that silence.
I think more talks like this, very, very candid, because we want, as people, we learn from example. We see somebody, we see Dineo talking about, okay, so that means I can talk about it as well. Yeah. If somebody like that can, then that means it's okay for me too, And then we need to remove the stigma as well, because that's another problem. When it comes to such conversations, people shy away from saying that this is what I'm dealing with. I'm dealing with addiction. I'm dealing with depression. I'm dealing with, maybe I am a bit stressed and I don't know what to do. And maybe as a parent, I don't know how to handle my child. But if they feel like these conversations just keep happening. So basically, we just need to open up and stop being like pretending to be perfect, perhaps, and pretending on social media that all is good. And if it looks like this, all is perfect, But if we start to do that, then people can possibly be able to talk more, and we can break the stigma that way.
Because we need to balance the need for education about dangers of substance abuse, right, with the ability to avoid stigmatizing the learners, because you just spoke about the stigma. Learners who may already be struggling with addictions and risky behavior. It can be addiction but mostly it's dual. It's dual. Together. Yeah, it goes together. So how do we address that?
One of the things that we need to put out there is, can we stop calling people abonyaupe and abo dragi? No, I'm an addict, because we like to do that.
We shame them.
We shame them. Instead of doing that, we need to be coming close to say, why are you doing this to yourself? Having a conversation. What has brought you here? Because nobody wants to be there.
Something
has brought you there. So perhaps to help you get out of there, I need to first sit you down and not expect you to be this clean person, but just talk to say, what has brought you here? And what what do you think, perhaps, and it bring you into the conversation. What do you think would help you get out of here? Because when you have those conversations, then you hear nobody wants to even stay in addiction. So they will tell you that, no, actually, this is what brought me here. Then can we try and assist you to deal with the problem? Because the drinking and the use of substances, that's the thing that you do because of something else that has happened.
And it holds them back. It limits their truest potential from being realized.
Yeah. So let's deal with the thing that happened, that then made you go to substances. Because as soon as we've dealt with that, instead of trying, because more often than not, we want to take the substance from a person that's already dealing with addiction. Let's not do that. Let's rather first say, what is it that has brought you here? And do you realize that you are the only one that can take yourself out? And have that, even that candid conversation to say, my taking the substance away is a very temporary measure, because you will find it. Even if I take it away now, you will find it, for as long as you have not dealt with whatever is the causal factor.
Yeah, this is true. Anything that happens to a single individual and we don't get to the root cause, we're missing something. It's like even when you go to visit the doctor will hear about the symptoms, but it's their responsibility to try help you get to the root cause, because once you address the root cause, you've done the Lord's work in mitigating the symptoms.
That's very true.
Okay, so now we're going to talk about one of my favorite subjects, close to my heart, mental health.
Yeah.
All right. We have to address mental health. I believe it's important, but I'll ask you, do you believe it's important to address mental health as part of a broader strategy for preventing substance use as well as risky sexual behavior? And I'll always highlight substance abuse, and right next to it, I'll place risky sexual behavior, because once you are intoxicated, you are no longer in control. The spirit of alcohol
is now in
control.
Of course.
So you have been officially occupied now by something that is bigger than you. And we don't seem to grasp this concept of mental health.
Yeah.
I don't think we grasp it well enough.
No, we don't.
We don't seem to treat the brain and the mind as we would treat the liver, the heart, and the kidney, the pancreas, the spleen, or whatever it is that's in the body that needs to be protected. We don't eat healthy for the brain.
Yeah.
We don't sleep well for the brain. We don't rest for the brain. We neglect the brain. So let's come back to mental health here.
Yeah.
Broader strategy. Bring me in.
The National Drug Master Plan, which is
Okay.
the overall strategy of the country,
Yeah.
does include issues of mental health to say how do you then associate, assist priority groups, young people that are dealing with certain issues. And this afternoon in Parliament, they were talking about the fact that the Department of Social Development does not have a plan for gambling addiction.
That's another one, eh?
Yeah, that's another one. But addiction is addiction, in all honesty. Yeah,
It is.
Yeah, it's just that it
Disease.
just comes in different ways. So mental health would fall into that as well, to say, how then do you assist people that then get into risky sexual behavior, because now even their brains and have been affected. And
The
the other...
cognitive dissonance
Ayo.
becomes...
Yeah, no, it's
non-existent.
It's non-existent. And the other challenge that we have is when we were, and all races now on this one, when we were growing up, this was called a rich man's thing. I don't know if it was
This
like
is
that
true.
in your
Yes, this is true. This is true. This is
izifo
true.
zabelungu wena wase
Yes.
udlala
Yes.
ngathi unani awuvuke lapho, like a person is depressed, a person is dealing with something.
Unedrama.
Yes, unedrama.
It's like, no, but I'm not dramatic.
I'm not dramatic.
I don't understand. I'm not feeling okay.
And sometimes you're not even able to put the words together to say, yini.
Can I tell you just a quick one? When you're talking about this now, it reminds me of one of my former employers, right? And I went when I had this mental health breakdown and that was heavily publicized. Before that mental health breakdown happened, you know how many times I told my boss and my team every time we went into meetings for months.
Oh my goodness.
Ndibaxelela nditsho ndithi, guys, I'm not feeling well. I can't put my finger on it. But I feel like there's something wrong with me. I don't feel well, and it's not something that you can put on my forehead and say your temperature. Is it your stomach? No, it's not my stomach. There is something significantly happening in me, and it is getting worse, and I'm not feeling well. For months.
Oh, wow.
For months. For months, I would
goodness.
say, there's something wrong, guys. I'm not feeling well. For months, I would say, I'm not feeling okay. I'm not feeling okay. Then the crash happened. And it's sad that we cannot put in words what we are going through. And when the crash happens, it's a judgment on the person who's crashing. But when the crash was being described, that it's coming, it's coming, it's coming, not a single hand was raised to say, would you like to speak to someone about it? Because I don't even know that I need to speak to someone about it, because I don't know what it is. Do you want to speak to HR? What can we do?
But even HR, Dineo, has to know what to do, because you will go and speak to HR. And this person will not even know.
Because
what
I think
to do
if I
with you.
struggled that way as an adult, at school,
Can you imagine at school?
How does this child describe to a teacher, an educator, their parent, that there's something wrong with me, but I can't explain it?
But then the teachers should be able to see the signs. So the training still goes back to the training, because the teacher should be able to see that if this young person was an A student, suddenly I'm seeing that, instead of thinking, hi, I got the dish, can I sit down to say, Sissy, what's going on? Are you okay? And probably when you ask that, when you ask that question
genuinely,
not,
because we can tell.
You can tell when it's genuine. You can.
Yeah.
When you ask that, are you okay?
And do educators lean into the learners and ask, are you okay?
Yeah, no,
I need
ever.
you to know that if you're not okay, of everyone here, you can go to anyone, but I'm raising my hand to say my door is a safe door to knock on.
And the other thing that happens, they say, but we tell them in LO, we stand right in front and we tell all of them.
No.
That's a script. That's a script. Exactly.
That's a script.
And people feel that this is not real. This is not genuine. If I go to this person, and the teachers also have to be taught to say, if there's confidence that has been placed in you, please keep that confidence. Don't then go to the staff room, because that's then what happens.
Yeah.
Young people are like, but then if I tell her,
all the teachers are going to know. Every class I get into is going to be like,
everyone is going to be like,
hey,
oh no.
Drugs, no.
Of course.
It's like, but no, I told the men. And now they're shamed, and now it's just another addition to their mental health deteriorating.
And now there's nobody. And you find that sadly, when the young person breaks that barrier that makes them confide in you, it's taken so much.
Yeah.
Can you imagine how far back they will pull to ever be able to trust another person who's in a position of authority and who could possibly help?
They won't do it again.
They won't do it again. So
you've ruined the only chance.
So you need to start thinking. And that applies also with the rest of us as adults, not just teachers. Because even us in our own spaces, people come to us and they confide in us.
Yeah, this is true.
And more often than not, we do not realize the impact of our letting go of that confidence that they have. Even just whispering to somebody to say, the impact of that. Umtanaga.
Ute.
Hey. Yabo. So we really, really need to figure out how to deal with that. The other thing that we can do as well, in terms of the mental health, you have a community of people, Dineo, in your life. Your children should know that if there's something that they cannot talk to you about, they can talk to Auntie so-and-so. They can go and talk to Mama so, and give them the permission to do that. Because as parents, sometimes we freak out by the fact that
yeah, it's parent envy. I think parents have parent envy, and I describe it as being jealous of seeing your child get close to a sibling of yours, which is their aunt or uncle, or a friend of yours that they prefer to talk to, your best friend. Yeah. They prefer to talk to everybody else but you. And parent envy is like friendship envy. If I know that you're my best friend, and we are best friends, now all of a sudden you're posting another best friend. I'm like, we all have a seed of envy in us that we need to regulate. So parent envy is actually a real thing, but we need to relax. We need to be able to give our children the blessing to seek out individuals that they can trust,
of course,
based on their own discernment, because that's how you cultivate discernment. That's how you teach your children how to build healthy relationships with people outside of yourself. And that's very important.
And it even goes to this issue of sex that we're talking about.
Yes, of
course. It might be difficult for you to have this sexual conversation with your daughter. But your friend, it will be easy for her.
It might be easy.
It might be, So allow that to happen. People that you trust. Allow your child to know that if niyagu antitineo, it's okay with mommy. It's not going to be a big issue, And we have seen this, and this is one of the things that young people have said to us, to say, hey, but our parents, as soon as you talk to so-and-so, they're like, bakwata, like, manje sengicala mina ukuthi mina ngihambe ngayokhuluma ngempilo yalakhaya, but this is your friend. I thought going to this person would probably be best because they're your friend, So then if you're thinking, that you've got people in your community that you do not want your children to be trusting, perhaps you should be looking at yourself and removing those people from your community. Instead of blaming the child. That's
actually brilliant. That's actually brilliant. Tell me, what do you believe about the most promising interventions? Speaking of approaches that could help prevent the escalation of substance abuse, risky sexual behavior. This is obviously referring to our our South African teenagers?
I think the first would be the amendment bill that I keep talking about.
100%, yeah.
That needs to be tabled.
Yeah.
Like yesterday. Because the one thing that we found, we were talking to Enyobe, and I don't know if you remember the Enyobe incident.
I know.
2021.
I think it was 3 years ago now.
Yeah, 2021.
No, it's now what? This is 2025. It's
4 years.
4 years ago.
Yeah. So we were talking to young people. So this group of young people that were at Enyobeni.
No, it's 3 years ago.
It's 3 years, 2022.
This would be the 4th year.
Oh, yes.
This would be the 4th
June
year.
26th.
Yes.
And amazingly, June 26th, do you know that it's the International Day Against Drug Abuse?
Really?
The very same day that
International
our
Day
children died. That was the day that we were commemorating that day. And we're supposed to be protecting children. Actually, that's the day that we're supposed to be saying, as countries in the world, we are protecting our children. And that's the morning that our children died. Anyway, when we were talking to those young people about the incident yesterday in Enyobeni, one of the things that they spoke about was the issue of the availability of alcohol for young people everywhere, especially in our townships.
Is that what the kids were saying? Is that
The
what
young
the
people
learners,
were
the
saying,
young people were saying that?
Kuyathengiswa everywhere and thina siyangena.
And kwezinye indawo kuthengiswa illegally. That's the thing.
No, siyangena sithenge and labo baba laba bafuna imali so bayasithengisela. Because whoever owns the tavern, bafuna imali, so bazosithengisela vele, and we can buy alcohol. So it's a strengthening of our enforcement. We really need to enforce our laws, because we do have laws in this country.
Legal boundaries.
We need to enforce them. We need to make sure that the permits are liquor boards. They need to be looking at that. So basically, all the things that we've got that exist already,
the challenge is industry. And when we say industry, we refer to the business.
Yeah.
The business. Business will push back.
Of course. But can
business will, why would they not push back if they know that they're in a country that spends billions
of course,
on alcohol? Why would they not push back?
They will push. And sadly, do you know that there's a study that was released by SAMRC, South African Medical Research Association, last year in December, that when you do, you check taverns, where they are, where there's a huge proliferation of taverns, that's where the GBV is most. That's where the sexual violence is most. You can literally mirror these things.
Of course, yes.
So ungabala la tavern, mawubheka nje communities where you see a lot of taverns and a lot of places where there's alcohol that is being sold. Those are the places that where we find the most in terms of GBV and sexual violence.
Because the level of sobriety is non-existent. Number one. So decision making, and if you see. And you see me looking over there, and you see my eye contact, ne? Because, talking to you. I just want you to understand and monitor what I'm saying, just underline a few things. If you see adults drinking, getting drunk, and you see, like what you're saying, the behavior, it deteriorates. They become more violent. They become angry. They have an ability to not be able to control themselves. These are full-blown human beings. Now, if you are 15, ask yourself if this bottle can overpower a 45-year-old at 15. Do the maths. Do you think you can withstand the effects and the impacts of it? Because the minute sensibility leaves the window, siyashayana, siyatshontselana, siyabulalana, yonke into kuyamosheka. There's a lot of work to be done.
There is.
There's a lot of work to be done, and you're a vessel in this work that needs to be done.
And so are you, though.
Yes, this is true. We are vessels, right?
We are
vessels. And I'm glad we were able to have this conversation, a very, very fruitful conversation. And I'm glad you were able to come in and not be shy about it. And you left everything on the floor. Girl, what they say, you ate. Period. Thank you so much for tuning into this episode of Breaking the Silence. We were talking about substance abuse today. If your friends haven't watched, tell a friend to come and watch. I want to leave you with this, right? Give yourself an opportunity to be your best self.
Yeah.
Just give yourself an opportunity to be your best self. And your best self will never, ever see the light of day with alcohol as your friend.
Yeah.
It holds you back, hey? And I'm not saying don't. I'm just saying think about it. Really think about it. Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you. Do you have any last words?
I would say you can make the choice. If you decide that you would want to drink, please drink after 21.
Take your time.
Take your time.
Take your time with the
You know,
sex. Take your time.
Take your
with the
time with this. Yeah.
substances,
Just take your time and enjoy being young.
Yeah.
And don't rush to get your life embroiled in things that are really not necessary.
Yeah.
Just take your time and let's see. When you are older,
You might
can
not
then
see
you
it
might
now,
not, yeah.
but later,
yeah,
it'll definitely
Yeah,
make
take your
sense.
time.
Invest in yourself. Invest in yourself. Soberly. God created us in sobriety, but we create each other in drunkenness. That's something to be ashamed
Yeah.
of.
We
Okay?
should. Yeah, it is.
That's something to,
To
be ashamed of. And we are made in the mirror image
Of
of God.
God,
So
yeah.
sobriety is almost like cleanliness, and that's close to godliness. Another one of breaking the silence. I'm going to love you and leave you. This was Miss Nomncebo. It almost sounds like my mother's name, Nomnceba.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, Nomncebo
Nomncebo.
Dlamini. Nomncebo Dlamini,
Yes,
yes,
yeah.
and indeed. I hope that you will join us on the next episode. Do take care. We love you. Bye-bye.